at betting on sporting events, some of the secrets that I've uncovered and why I am considered to be the Lord of the big dance. Remember, we're brought to you in no small part thanks to mybookie.ag. Use the promo code Duffy. That's your way of showing your support, saying, Joe Duffy, I want you to give me free picks 360 days a year. And if you set up an account at mybookie.ag using the promo code Duffy, it's one way to show your support, and they will give you a $1,000 sign-up bonus. Now, this is something that if you're maybe watching a couple years down the road, the different promotions and bonuses that they offer will change. But if you use the promo code Duffy, they have told me they will always make sure you get the single biggest sign-up bonus, the best promotion they have going at the time. Use the promo code Duffy at mybookie.ag. It's a tremendous and very easy site to navigate, betting on all sports. And yeah, $1,000 that you can use right now, mybookie.ag. One of the old adages when it comes to a neutral field or neutral court games, whether you're talking football, whether you're talking basketball in college, and maybe even occasion when you're talking about those London games, people think it's a road game for both teams, and they'll say, go with the team that's played better on the road. And that's not necessarily true, because the truth is a neutral court game is just that. It's neither a home game nor a road game. But when it does come to the NCAA tournament, that old adage does apply somewhat, especially in specific circumstances. The teams with the better road winning percentage are a decent 51.2 percentage play in the history of our database when it comes to the NCAA tournament. But when their overall winning percentage is less or equal, and yet their away winning percentage is better, it goes up to a 54.2%. And again, that would say that they're a worse team winning percentage-wise, straight up overall, but yet they're a better team on the road, and such teams do very well in the NCAA tournament. And in fact, we've got a subsystem of that hits at 60.2%. Make sure you sign up at Joe Duffy's Picks at offshoreinsiders.com to find out what that 60% system is. Should apply, 5 times or so during the NCAA tournament this year, and we're going to make you a fortune. Now, distance traveled can create a neutral court advantage. I don't really have a precise formula, but essentially I like for a team to travel at least 60% further and at least 75 miles further. But you usually, because there's a few more teams east of the Mississippi, sometimes you'll especially have eastern teams travel out west, and you'll have maybe one team that's traveled 900 miles and another team that's maybe traveled 200 miles. I consider that to be a neutral court advantage, and usually the team that has traveled significantly less, and this is true even in the conference tournaments as well, a pretty good play. Use the odds maker's knowledge against them. When you have something that's clearly counterintuitive, a team that's significantly lower seeded, I'm not talking about 8 and 9 games, throw them out. But when you have a team that's a couple seeds lower and yet they're still a favorite, more times than not, they're a pretty good play. That's what we call use the odds maker's knowledge against them. And it also applies if you have a really big gap, like maybe a number 3 team playing a number 13 team or whatever, a big gap, and yet they're either the higher seeded team's only a very small favorite. Maybe the number 3 team is a 1-point favorite to the number 9 team, or maybe, the number 4 team is just a 2-point favorite to the number 15 team. I mean, I don't have the brackets in front of me, whether or not, those matchups can happen like in the second round or whatever. But you get the point. When there's a huge difference between the two, and yet the higher seeded team is only a small favorite, more times than not, we'll lean towards the underdog. We'll put a check mark in the underdog's spot right there, because listen to what the odds makers are telling you. If something is counterintuitive, the spread versus the seedings, usually you go with the odds makers' knowledge and go with the statement essentially that they are making. Favorites, when they have a significantly worse winning percentage, a very strong 63.6%, and I scrolled over the list, an overwhelming majority of the time, usually what it is one of the lesser teams from one of the power conferences, like the Big E, the old Big East, really, and even the current Big East, not so much the Big East, but the Big Ten or the Atlantic Coast Conference, when they're like number 6 team, is a favorite over a smaller conference team. So, that's usually when it applies, and the team that is favored, the team that, maybe has 18 wins and they're favored to a team that has 21 wins, usually go with the favorite there. Again, use the odds maker's knowledge against them. And it makes perfect sense because I actually like to take notes and find out the consensus chic teams and then the consensus teams that didn't deserve to make it. And when you talk about the media, their dark horse teams are almost always mid-major teams. They never say that whatever, a Clemson or a Purdue or whatever the case, it varies from year to year, but say the team that finished sixth in the ACC, they're not going to be anyone's dark horse. It's always going to be somebody from a mid-major. And usually, not surprisingly, when those teams are underdogs, small underdogs to a power conference team, it's where the media is always calling for an upset, and it's essentially a contrarian play. But again, when you have a team with a significantly worse winning percentage and they're a favorite, go with the favorite. And finally, the Ken Pom luck factor. If you're not familiar with the Ken Pom luck factor, what it is, it's essentially based on Ken has a formula that says which teams have deceptive records. If a team has won a majority of their close games this year, Ken Pom luck factor would consider them to be a lucky team. Maybe that they're not quite as good as their straight-up record indicates. Conversely, if a team's got a bunch of 1 and 2 and 3-point losses, they're a very unlucky team. And we found out that the unluckiest teams, using that criterion, are the most undervalued. The luckiest teams are the most overvalued. Now, there's a lot more that goes into that. There's a different way to use the contrarian stuff in the postseason. It kind of overlaps with some of the stuff we said, but not totally. I've got all the knowledge you want. OffshoreInsiders.com. Joe Duffy's picks. I've been winning. This is my 31st year in the business. I go back to the score phone days. If you're a youngin', ask your mom or dad about me. They've been winning with me. Ask your grandfather. Ask any damn, go to a sports bar and ask somebody there who's betting on games. They knew who Joe Duffy was a quarter century ago. I'm going to be winning for you for a long time. These are time-proven, advanced analytic things that will win for you. OffshoreInsiders.com. And again, make sure you use mybookie.ag. I see my iMac timed out as far as the power, but yeah, mybookie.ag. They do have that $1,000 sign-up bonus. Use the promo code Duffy, D-U-F-F-Y. Get the maximum sign-up bonus. All the thoroughly vetted sports books are at offshore